You have heard it said, you only live once, right? You only have one chance to live. You only live, and when you die, that is it. And many times, especially when we want to convince ourselves to do some things that probably we are not very prepared for, we are like, hey, I'll live once, therefore I take the risk. Or maybe I feel like this is too expensive for me, I should not be spending this much on myself. But then I'm like, I live once. And because I live once, I tend to do more for myself, spoil myself, and not think about anything else. Because anyway, you live once. That is what many movies or songs or writings or books are telling us these days, that we live once, therefore we do not care about what's going on around us. As long as I'm happy, I'll live once, then I can move on with my life, right? But today I want us to ask ourselves one question. Do you really live once? And let's for once assume that you truly live once, like maybe you live once. What would you rather do? Would you rather spend so much on self, like spoil myself, buy the most expensive thing, travel to the most wonderful places I've ever thought of, or just do all these things that we always desire? If we really lived once, what would our priorities be? Will it be on self or on others? Will I prioritize myself and my extravagant living, or will I prioritize helping others, being compassionate to others, showing love to others? Or what will you prioritize if you really lived once? And because this message has been preached to us, it has been conveyed to us so many times, sometimes we don't even think about it, right? I live once, therefore I can jump over the cliff and see what happens. If I die, I die. I live once, therefore I can take any risk. If I die, I die. And many times when you have this mentality, it looks like you live once, and once you die, it is forgotten, kaput, like you are totally forgotten. And that's the end of it. But this day I want to ask you, do you think you really live once? And you might say that my thoughts and my views are really influenced by the Bible, which is true. I'm a believer, therefore. I'm actually influenced by the scriptures. The Bible tells us that we do not live once. Yeah, that is right. We do not live once. And as a Christian, we believe that after this life, there is another life. Therefore, this life is so important to us because it will determine how well we will spend our next life. Yeah? And the most amazing part of the scripture is the Bible tells us that God has given us the choice. He has given us something so wonderful called the will. Like, I can choose to do that and not to do that. And because of that, He has placed in us, He says, I have placed before you life and death. And He says, choose life and you will live. Of course, definitely if you choose death, you know you'll die. But God is presenting to us a case, choose life. And once we choose life, we know that we have chosen a better life after this life. And you'll wonder what convinces me that actually, as a believer, I will not live once, that there is life after this. And I would say that the author of our faith, the author and the starter of our faith, the one who started it, who is Christ, died. Yes, he died. But the beautiful, beautiful story is that that was not the end, right? He died and he rose again. And as we speak, he's seated at the right hand of God. He's seated at the right hand of the Father and doing a very beautiful thing. He's always interceding for me and for you. And therefore, this convinces me that I will not live once. There's more than this life. Yes, there's more than this life. And having established that there's more to this life, there's life after death, as we believe so, as Christians, then it challenges me, then how should I live? How should we live? Once we have believed that there is life after this, how should we live? And as I was thinking, it made me really appreciate this life. Like, we have been given a very wonderful chance to choose where we are going to spend our eternity. And how we choose is through what we choose to do. Like, we choose it by our actions. We choose it by who we choose to believe in, how we choose to act, and whether we choose to obey he that promised us all these things. And if you're a believer, when you look at the book of Revelation towards the end, the Bible tells us that in the vision of John that was given to him by Christ, that at the end of all times, when everything has come to an end, the books were opened. And when the books were opened, the dead and the living, all of them were judged based on their deeds. Like, based on what they did, right? And therefore, this makes me think that what I do currently is really important. What I choose to do now is important because it helps me determine where I shall be at the end of ages, right? And this makes me think that as a believer and as a Christian, however I choose to live is really important. And will I choose to respect, or will I choose to obey what Christ says about me? Will I choose to follow his word? Will I choose to follow the things he has commanded me to? Or will I choose just to live once, right? Like, don't care, don't do anything but just live once. And the more I think of it, the more I realize that we do not live once. We have another chance to live. But the current life is so important because it is this life that will determine how our next life will be. And therefore, I will challenge you to think about your life. Let's think about our life, yes, and see where do our actions or where do the things we do place us in eternity. Because it's quite straightforward. If we choose to believe in he who has promised these things, then we know for sure at the end we will spend eternity with him. But if we choose to disobey, then outrightly we know we will still spend eternity, but completely separated from him in eternal fire. And with this, I like to challenge you and to challenge myself with the same question I started with. Do you think you live once? And whichever answer you have, how then should you live this life? Thank you so much and have a good time. And one more thing, you can click the like button and subscribe and have a wonderful time. Bye-bye.